Welcome to our high school professional cadre. Today, we will be covering the topic of transition for high school students. Our goals for today include understand the bigger picture of Oregon initiatives related to youth, education, and improving outcomes for post-high school. Learn about Oregon's priorities for improvement. Review post-school outcomes data collection. Review predictors and practices that improve post-school outcomes for students. We also hope you gain a deeper understanding of the transition components of the IEP, understand pre-employment transition services, and obtain resources for supporting transition for your students on your caseload and improving outcomes for those students. Employment First is a national movement centered on the belief that all people, regardless of disability, are capable of full participation in integrated employment and community life. In Oregon, Employment First is also a state policy. The Employment First policy states that work in integrated jobs is the first and priority option in planning employment services for working-age adults and youth. Services should be planned using person-centered planning practices that identify an individual's talents, skills, and interests. This information can then help inform employment options and career opportunities. Oregon has partnered with a variety of stakeholders to develop a plan for successful implementation of the Employment First initiative. These partners include Vocational Rehabilitation, Office of Developmental Disability Services, Oregon Department of Education, Oregon Council on Developmental Disabilities. The link below has more information. Governor Kate Brown is launching Future Ready Oregon to provide skill and job training to students and adults, helping to close the gap between the skills that Oregon's workers have and the skills that Oregon's growing businesses need. It connects what students are learning to the jobs that businesses are creating. By increasing our students' opportunities for hands-on learning, we motivate students to keep coming to school and to keep learning right up until they graduate and head into the world of work. The Governor's Future Ready Oregon policy agenda lays out pathways to prepare our future workforce by making investments in education that uses hands-on learning, prepare our current workforce by arming them with the skills they need to help Oregon's economy grow. Examples of the impact on education: dedicating $300 million to career technical education or CTE classes in the 1921 state budget, make hands-on learning programs available in every school district in Oregon, ensure every student in Oregon has the opportunity to participate in hands-on learning programs. To learn more, click the link Future Ready Oregon. The state of Oregon is required to have in place a State Performance Plan, or SPP, that evaluates the implementation of special education services for school-aged children and outlining how the state will make improvements. Oregon's performance plan lists 4 transition-related indicators. Number 1, increase graduation rate. Number 2, decrease dropout rate. Number 3, achieve 100% compliance on transition-related standards in the IEP. And number 4, improve post-school outcomes for employment, education or training, and independent living. Our focus in this cadre will be to explore transition-related standards and post-school outcomes. First, let's look at post-school outcomes.
Districts are required to complete follow-up interviews with all students who receive special education services and who left high school or transition programs. Each district must contact or attempt to contact 100% of the students on IEPs who left the previous year. For example, from June to September of 2019, calls were made for all students who graduated, aged out, or earned a certificate for the 2018-19 school year. Calls were also made to any students who dropped out during the school year. Post-school outcomes is a required collection. Oregon Department of Education must report the percentage of special education students who are enrolled in higher education, competitively employed, or in some other post-secondary education or training, or some other employment. We recognize that there is value in the PSO collection. It's the only data collection for transition. Data can be used to inform transition program changes at the state and local level. It's a chance to listen to students and families and let their voices be heard. It's also an opportunity to use their voices of former students and families in collaboration to improve student success. Now, let's take a look at some state trends from 2014 to 2017. This is a look at data trends for Oregon when related to engagement after 1 year of graduating or exiting school services. We're looking at data collected through the post-school outcomes collection for 2014, which is blue, 2015, orange, 2016, gray, and 2017, yellow. The first set of bar graphs looks at students in higher education after leaving high school. The second set of bar graphs shows students engaged in either higher education or employment. The third set of graphs shows students engaged in higher education, competitive employment, or some other work, like family business, for example, or a training program. The last set of bar graphs shows the students who are unengaged. The good news is, overall, state trends show an overall increase in engagement and a decrease in unengagement. Now let's look at some of our own data from the most recent PSO collection. Here you can see the data from our post-school outcomes collection completed this summer. Again, the interviews completed were with students who graduated or exited school at the end of the 2017 or 2018 school year. We were asked to complete 354 follow-up interviews. We were able to reach and interview 176 students or family members. It's not an ideal participation. We'd like to increase the number of students and families we're able to interview. Of those 176 interviews we did complete, 45% of students were engaged in higher education, 13% were competitively employed, 19% were in some other type of employment, like a family business or non-paid minimum wage. 6% were in some type of training program, and 17% were not engaged at all. Districts are encouraged to use the data in this collection to assist with programming and improving services for students. However, we first need to increase our overall participation in the PSO. We were only able to complete 49% of the required interviews. Here are some strategies for increasing PSO participation. Discuss the follow-up interview with students during their last year in high school or our community transition program. Remind students that the data we get when we call them might help students in the future be better prepared for life after high school. Complete exit interviews and be sure to ask students to provide contact information such as a cell number and email addresses. Sign up to help make phone calls in the summer. Students are more likely to participate when the person making the call is someone with whom they have a connection. Here's a list of some of the predictors of post-school success. These predictors are the interventions that lead to improved outcomes for students and are identified through ongoing reviews of rigorous correlation research. Family expectations, inclusion in general education classes, independent living skills, family involvement, career awareness, interagency collaboration, occupational courses, high school diploma, self-advocacy and self-determination, community experiences, and paid work experiences. Evidence-based practices help define the predictors and provide strategies and steps to support the predictors described on the previous slide. These are the tangible things we can do to support students to have a greater post-school outcomes. Work closely with families and help them understand transition programs after high school. Support scheduling and inclusion in general education. Explicit instruction to increase independence and prompt fading. Explicit instruction for social skills. Teach career awareness. Teach students to set goals and evaluate options. Help link youth and families to outside agencies such as vocational rehabilitation, DD services, etc. promote career technical education, explore paid work opportunities for students or other experiences such as job shadowing or internships. Now let's take a closer look at the main transition standards in the IEP.
Here we have the areas of transition that need to be addressed in the IEP. Over the next several slides, we will take a close look at each one. We will look at the requirement based in IDEA, evidence that we as case managers have met the requirement, and general information about the standard and how to implement it in meaningful ways with students. The standards include inviting the student, conducting age-appropriate transition assessments, using those assessments to define preferences, interests, needs, and strengths, developing measurable post-secondary goals based on transition assessments, outlining a course of study, providing transition services, coordinating with outside agencies, and, like all students, having some annual goals. Transition standards and synergy. At PPS, the expectation is that transition standards will be addressed beginning with the first IEP when students are in high school. For ninth grade students, please remember to check the box to include transition for the first IEP if the student is not already 15 years old. See the screenshot for guidance. If the student is 15 years old, transition will already be included in the IEP. Transition standards and synergy. At PPS, the expectation is that transition standards will be addressed beginning with the first IEP when students are in high school. For ninth grade students, please remember to check the box to include transition for the first IEP if the student is not already 15 years old. See the screenshot for guidance. If the student is 15 years old, transition will already be included in the IEP. Now let's take a closer look at each standard. Inviting the student to the IEP. Requirement. Beginning with the first IEP when the student is 15, turning 16, the student must be invited to the IEP. It's better to start even earlier. Evidence that the requirement has been met. Student is included on the meeting notice, listed as a participant, or meeting notes indicate student was invited but opted not to attend. Other ideas for student involvement. Student-led IEP meetings, conferences prior to IEP meeting to deepen understanding of process, conferences post-IEP meeting to review goals and accommodations and modifications for increasing self-advocacy skills. Age-appropriate transition assessments. Requirement. High school students must be administered age-appropriate transition assessments. Evidence that the requirement has been met. Transition page describes results of the assessments, and those assessments inform preferences, interests, needs, and strengths, or PINs, in the transition section of the present levels. More information. Completing transition assessments is an ongoing process of helping students get to know themselves and their PINs. They can be formal or informal. Results guide the development of post-secondary goals as well as services that the student needs. More on transition assessments. Examples of formal assessments include SIS, Naviance, ACT, SAT scores, formal testing such as the Woodcock-Johnson or KTEA, adaptive skills. Examples of informal assessments include observations, interviews, interest inventories, questionnaires, and other teacher-created materials. Summarizing results of transition assessments. Here are some examples of wording that can be used when summarizing transition assessments in the present levels. Amanda was given a pictorial interest inventory. With support, she looked at pictures of different careers and was asked to choose the one she liked best. She circled the most pictures related to a job or career in food service. This is consistent with observations staff have made during her culinary arts class. Amanda seems to enjoy doing the prep for cooking activities and can follow simple recipes with visuals and support from staff. Here's another example. Alex participated in career interest inventories that indicate a preference for, as well as skills that match, a career or job working with computers. His scores on the Wechsler Intelligence Test suggest that Alex's academic function should be within average range. However, results of the Vineland Adaptive Behavior Scale suggest that Alex is functioning below average in communication and socialization. This is consistent with observations of Alex in class.
Post-secondary goals. The requirement is that students in high school must have measurable post-secondary goals in training, education, employment, and independent living as appropriate. Evidence that the requirement has been met is that the IEP contains measurable post-secondary goals in these domains. Post-secondary goals are the students' goals for the future. They can sometimes be challenging to write when students are not sure what they want to do, so they're generated from assessments. In most cases, these goals will evolve over high school and not stay exactly the same. Oregon Department of Education has provided a formula for writing post-secondary goals. The formula includes the following components: a time frame, the student's name, what the student will be doing, and the location and the how. Here are some examples of goals that meet the goal formula. Training. Within 6 months of exiting school services, Jose will complete on-the-job training in a sports-related business. Education. 3 months after graduating, Chris will enroll in basic math classes at a local community college. Employment. Immediately after exiting school services, Hafna will be employed at least 20 hours per week in retail or customer services. Independent living. Upon exiting school services, Serge will be living with family, but shopping for and cooking some of his own meals. Course of study. The requirement is that high school students must have a course of study to assist them in achieving their post-secondary goals. This must be multi-year. The evidence is that the multi-year course of study is included in the IEP. More tips to remember about the course of study. It identifies specific courses that connect to the goals. Identifies specific activities that connect to the goals. It does not state that students will take the necessary courses to graduate or include a list of their entire schedule. Transition services. The requirement is that for students in high school, IEPs must include transition services that assist the student in achieving their post-secondary goals. The evidence that this requirement has been met is that the IEP includes some evidence of instruction and/or activities that assist the student in making progress towards meeting their particular post-secondary goals. Transition service examples would include specific instruction and annual goals, related services, community experiences, or job shadows. Coordination with outside agencies. The requirement is that IEPs for students in high school should include, to the extent appropriate and with the consent of the parent or adult student, representatives from outside agencies responsible for paying for or providing transition services. Evidence in the IEP is that those participants are included on the meeting notice, we have a release of information, and they're listed in the meeting minutes. If there's no outside agency participation, an NA is put in the box rather than leaving it blank. Here are some examples of outside agencies who may participate in or provide input for IEPs. Vocational rehabilitation, a developmental disabilities services case manager, or brokerage services personal support worker, or PSW. Requirement for annual goals. Students in high school must have annual goals related to their transition services that assist in achieving post-secondary goals. The evidence is that the annual goals are in the IEP and are related to and will assist with meeting post-secondary goals. Other information to consider. A big question that comes up is, do students need to have annual transition goals and services and SDI, specially designed instruction, listed in the IEP? In most cases, the answer is yes. However, IEPs are individualized and based on student need. If students are college bound and have academic or study skills goals, that may be what they need in order to support them in meeting their future goal of college.
Pre-employment transition services are called PREETs. What are PREETs? PREETs are services available to students in high school to age 21 who have a current disability or 504 plan that are designed to enhance but not supplant services that we provide as educators under IDEA. They include such things as job exploration and counseling, instruction in self-advocacy, and workplace readiness. On this slide, we have some resources to help you access PREETs. If you are a school with Youth Transition Program or YTP, develop a relationship with your Youth Transition Program specialist for consultation and support. If you are a school without YTP, send an email to pre.ets@dhsohs.or.us to request consultation and support. The next several slides include resources to provide support to you in your work with students. Many of you have a copy of the 2018-19 Transition Handbook. Here is a link to access the online version of the handbook. This slide includes resources for helping students find paid work. SummerWorks is a paid summer internship program for youth ages 16 to 24 in the Portland metro area. The program targets youth from diverse backgrounds with little or no work history. The primary goal of this program is to prepare young individuals for the workforce by providing them access to free work readiness training and then placing them into entry and mid-level internship opportunities that will improve their individual skills for future jobs. Year-round Work Connect to Careers is a free-to-use career portal that connects young adults to local jobs, work-based training, and other resources. Young adults would get access to hundreds of opportunities like events, jobs, and internships, regionally recognized training, individual brand management, and resume reviews and interview prep. Please click the links for more information. This slide includes resources for student involvement in the IEP. The links below include a variety of things such as lists of tips and tricks for including students, workbooks with activities that involve students, and specific templates that allow students to lead their own IEP meetings. This slide includes lesson plans and activities that help teach and improve skills related to self-awareness, self-advocacy, and other soft skills that promote success beyond high school. This slide includes resources related to developmental disabilities. The Office of Developmental Disability Services, ODDS, offers supported employment services that can help a person find, maintain, and advance in an integrated job in the community. Services include job development, job coaching, the discovery process, and small group employment. For more information, click the link DD Employment Services. This concludes today's professional cadre. Please take a few moments to go back and click on the links to see if any of those resources will help you in your work. And don't forget to complete the application activity. Future professional cadre topics include diploma options, CTP, our community transition program and the options for all students, and supporting students with social emotional needs. What are your ideas and needs for professional development? Please share any ideas you have with your SPED administrator or TOSA. Thank you for participating in today's professional cadre.